I had a guy in the shop last year, mid-20s, 2JZ swapped IS300, beautiful build. He told me the 2JZ was the toughest engine ever made. Overbuilt internals, cast iron block, handles 1,000 horsepower on stock bottom end. He wasn't wrong about any of that. I asked him one question: how many miles are you planning to put on it? He said maybe 200,000 if he took care of it. Said that like it was an ambitious number. I told him about a taxi driver in Greece who put 2.85 million miles on a Mercedes diesel. Same engine, one rebuild. The car outlasted 3 bodies. He went quiet for about 5 seconds. Then he said, "What engine was that?" That's the question this video answers. Today we're comparing 3 engines that built their reputations on durability: the Toyota 2JZ, the Mercedes OM617, and the Ford 4.6 V8. Each one earned its legend differently, and only one of them proved, with documented mileage and real service records, that it can outlast everything else on this list. The answer is probably not what you expect. Section 1. The 2JZ. Let's get to the one you came here to see. The Toyota 2JZ is a 3.0-liter inline-6, and everything about it was overbuilt from the factory. Cast iron block, forged steel crankshaft. The cylinder block is sealed shut between the bores rather than left open, a closed-deck design, which means the cylinder walls barely flex even under extreme boost pressure. Toyota built it during Japan's bubble economy in the early 1990s, when cost-cutting was an afterthought and over-engineering was the default. The result was a gasoline engine with internals strong enough to handle double or triple its factory output without ever opening the block. On stock internals, the 2JZ GTE has been pushed past 700 horsepower reliably. Fully built examples have crossed 1,500, some have touched 2,000. But strength under boost and strength over time are 2 completely different measurements. The 2JZ was engineered for performance headroom. Whether it was also engineered for 500,000 miles of quiet daily service is a different question entirely, one that forces you to rethink what the word durability actually means. We'll come back to that. Section 2. Why this comparison matters. Most people use the word durable and powerful interchangeably when they talk about engines. They hear that the 2JZ handles enormous horsepower and assume that means it lasts longer. They see Crown Victorias still running after 300,000 miles of police duty and call the 4.6 indestructible. They've heard the phrase million-mile Mercedes and assume it's a myth. None of that's fully accurate. Durability in an engine comes down to 3 things: how long the internal components resist wear under normal use, how simple or complex the failure points are, and how much maintenance the engine demands to stay alive. Power potential, aftermarket support, and tuning headroom have almost nothing to do with it. This comparison is strictly about which engine keeps running the longest under real conditions, with real maintenance, in real service. Section 3. The rules. No bias. We're comparing documented mileage records, engineering design decisions, common failure modes, and real-world service history. Not dyno sheets, not quarter-mile times, not cultural loyalty. Each engine gets a fair breakdown of what it does well and where it falls short. The winner isn't chosen by reputation, it's chosen by evidence. Section 4. The 2JZ, where it shows its limits. Back to the 2JZ. In teardown footage of a 2JZ-GE that had already crossed 400,000 miles, the internals were in remarkable shape. The camshafts showed only minor wear. The cylinder walls still retained most of their original cross-hatching. The bottom end was still healthy, outside of normal bearing wear and some sludge in the oil pan. For a gasoline engine at that mileage, that's exceptional. Still, the 2JZ carries maintenance demands that work against pure longevity. It runs a timing belt, not a chain, which means scheduled replacement every 60,000 to 90,000 miles. Miss that interval and you're looking at bent valves and a potential rebuild. Valve stem seals wear over time and contribute to oil consumption. A single ignition coil failure can trigger misfires across 2 cylinders at once. On VVT-equipped versions, The variable valve timing actuator adds yet another potential failure point. None of these are catastrophic on their own, yet they add up. The 2JZ's realistic ceiling for most owners is 300,000 miles with attentive maintenance. Some reach 400,000 or beyond, but those cases are outliers, not expectations. The engine was built to survive extreme stress in short bursts. It wasn't designed to survive 30 years of brutal daily punishment. So the question becomes, what about an engine that was designed for exactly that? One that spent decades doing the hardest job in American automotive service and kept showing up every morning. Section 5. The Ford 4.6 V8, the fleet survivor. The Ford 4.6-liter modular V8 first appeared in 1991. It was still in production 23 years later. It powered Crown Victorias, Grand Marquises, F-150s, Mustangs, Explorers, and Lincoln Town Cars. Ford trusted it across more platforms and more service years than almost anything else in their lineup. Its reputation was built in the harshest proving ground available, American fleet service. New York taxi operators ran Crown Victorias with the 4.6 because they were cheap to maintain and almost impossible to kill under stop-and-go punishment. Police departments across the country chose the Crown Victoria P71 Police Interceptor for the same reason. These cars routinely accumulated 300,000 miles of heavy-duty use. Some pushed past 400,000 before retirement. The engineering was deliberately conservative. A near square bore and stroke favored low-end torque and reduced internal stress. The pistons were formulated to expand less under heat than standard aluminum castings, holding tighter tolerances even at high mileage. Timing chains instead of belts eliminated one of the most common failure triggers in high-mileage engines. The engine was easy to access, easy to service, and built with components that fleet mechanics could replace without specialized tooling. Owner reliability surveys rated the 4.6 at 9.6 out of 10. In the world of American V8s, that's nearly unmatched. Section 6. Where the 4.6 stumbles. The 4.6 earned its reputation, yet it earned some scars along the way. From 1996 to 2001, Ford used a plastic intake manifold and mounted the alternator bracket directly into it. Constant heat cycling cracked the plastic, coolant leaked, engines overheated. In severe cases, the damage spread well beyond the manifold. The problem was widespread enough to trigger class action lawsuits. Ford eventually offered reinforced replacements, but owners of affected models had already learned about the flaw the hard way. Timing chain tensioners hold up well, but they eventually wear in high-mileage examples. Plastic chain guides degrade as engine oil detergents erode them past 100,000 miles. On certain 3-valve variants, spark plug threads in the aluminum heads were too shallow, causing plugs to blow out under compression. A cheap part causing an expensive repair. These problems are fixable and well documented. They don't define the engine, but they do separate the 4.6 from the kind of engine that simply refuses to develop problems at all. Section 7. The Mercedes OM617, the one nobody argues about. The Mercedes OM617 is a 3.0-liter inline-5 diesel that Mercedes produced from 1974 to 1991. It made between 79 and 121 horsepower, depending on the variant. The naturally aspirated version took over 15 seconds to hit 60. It was, by every modern performance metric, painfully slow. And it's still widely regarded as one of the most durable engines ever built. Mercedes made the OM617 during an era when the company's engineering philosophy had one priority above everything else. The engine should outlast the car. The block is cast iron. The cylinder head is cast iron. The fuel injection system is fully mechanical, built by Bosch, with no electronic control unit, no sensors, and minimal wiring. A double roller timing chain drives the camshaft. 2 valves per cylinder, roller rocker arms. There's almost nothing in this engine that can fail electronically, because there's almost nothing electronic in it.
Section 8. Why the OM617 refuses to die. Mechanical simplicity alone doesn't explain the OM617's longevity. The engineering runs deeper. Diesel engines run on compression ignition, which means lower peak RPM and longer power strokes than gasoline equivalents. The OM617 redlines below 5,000 RPM. Most of its operating life happens between 1,800 and 3,500. At those speeds, stress on the bearings, rods, and journals stays consistently low. Instead of blasting fuel directly into the cylinder and hoping for a clean burn, the OM617 routes it through a small pre-chamber first. Think of it like lighting a fire in a sheltered alcove before letting the flames spread into the room. That's indirect injection, and it creates smoother combustion with far less thermal shock to the piston crowns and cylinder walls. It's less fuel efficient than modern direct injection. It's also far gentler on internal components over hundreds of thousands of miles. Mercedes pressurized the cooling system to prevent the localized hotspots that blow head gaskets in competing engines. On the turbo variant, oil jets cool the pistons from below, and the crank is hardened to handle extreme mileage. Every design decision prioritized survival over efficiency. The engine was slow because it was built to be slow. The low stress was the point.
Section 9. The mileage records that ended the debate. Other engines claimed durability. The OM617 documented it. With standard maintenance, these engines routinely exceed 500,000 miles. Many surpass 620,000 miles, the 1 million kilometer mark, without a major overhaul. That's already beyond what most gasoline engines will ever reach. Then there are the outliers that stop being outliers because there were so many of them. Grigorios Sachanides, a taxi driver in Thessaloniki, Greece, logged 2.85 million miles on a 1976 Mercedes 240D powered by the OM617. That's the highest documented mileage ever recorded on a Mercedes-Benz. Paul Harmon in Georgia bought his 1976 300D brand new and drove it past 1.15 million miles on the same OM617, with one engine rebuild and the original transmission still intact. A 1979 300T D-Wagon hit 1.26 million kilometers, roughly 782,000 miles, on its original engine, nothing beyond routine servicing. These aren't press cars or controlled experiments. They're working vehicles driven by everyday people who changed the oil, replaced the filters, and kept driving. The OM617 didn't need exotic care. It needed consistency, and it rewarded that consistency with mileage numbers that no gasoline engine in this comparison has come close to matching. Section 10. Side by side, real numbers. Once you lay out the engineering, the failure modes, and the documented service records side by side, the separation's impossible to ignore. The Toyota 2JZ reaches 300,000 miles reliably with attentive maintenance. Exceptional examples have pushed past 400,000. Its ceiling is limited by timing belt dependence, ignition and valve train wear, and the simple fact that it was optimized for power, not mileage. The Ford 4.6 V8 reaches 300,000 to 400,000 miles in fleet service with regular upkeep. Its ceiling is constrained by material choices in the early intake manifolds, tensioner wear, and shallow threads in the aluminum heads. Fixable problems, but problems nonetheless. The Mercedes OM617 reaches 500,000 miles as a baseline, with documented examples running past 1 million, and one verified case reaching 2.85 million. Its ceiling hasn't been firmly established because the engines keep outliving the vehicles they're installed in. Section 11. The winner. Based on all these numbers, the OM617 wins, and the margin isn't small. This is where the result frustrates people. The 2JZ is stronger, the 4.6 is more versatile. Both engines are faster, more modern, and more exciting to talk about, yet neither one has a realistic path to 1 million miles without a full rebuild, and the OM617 has done it repeatedly, in taxis, in family cars, in service vehicles across 6 continents. The OM617 didn't win because it was tough, it won because it was simple. Fewer electronic systems meant fewer failure modes. Lower operating RPM meant less stress per cycle. Mechanical fuel injection meant the engine could run on low-quality fuel in any climate on Earth and still start every morning. It was never designed to be the most powerful, the most refined, or the most exciting. It was designed to run, and it ran longer than anything else.